In Parliament today, members sat at a safe distance from one another. Now, the number of coronavirus cases will continue to rise in the coming weeks as some of the more than 200,000 Singaporeans return home from overseas. In preparation for the expected surge in cases, the government has ramped up its contact tracing capacity. Singapore can now trace up to 4,000 contacts each day. Singapore also has sufficient capacity to meet all healthcare needs, including COVID-19 cases. The National Centre for Infectious Diseases, or NCID, can be expanded to have 500 beds, up from 330. Minister for National Development Lawrence Wong was also caught in an emotional moment while expressing gratitude to the frontline workers.
Words are not sufficient to express our appreciation for Mr. Speaker, words are not sufficient to express our appreciation for all of those who are Let me just rephrase that, repeat what I said just now. Words are not sufficient to express our appreciation for so many Singaporeans going all out to fight the virus. But I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who's doing their part.
Joining me to discuss more on the Parliament session earlier is News Editor Zakir Hussain. Welcome, Zak.
Hi.
Now, Zak, the Multi-Ministry Task Force announced even stricter measures yesterday. Now, just days after the ban on all incoming travellers, did it come as a surprise? Was it too quick?
Well, actually, I don't think it was a surprise because if you remember, it's been about late last week. There was talk of safe distancing and having marked out queues for Singaporeans to kind of stand apart and so on, so you don't, you minimize contact with others. But actually, while people and establishments mostly followed it, people were still out there. Malls were packed over the weekend. Some restaurants were implementing safe distancing. Others, weren't really sure what to do. And I think yesterday's measures may have seemed like a very swift escalation. But so were the spike in the number of cases around the world globally. And I think there was a realization that if we didn't almost coerce or force such a safe distancing, we might see a spike in the number of local cases. And I think, it's not as serious yet to warrant a lockdown, given the severe consequences a lockdown will have.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, on that, because netizens have called for a lockdown. Is it feasible?
I think it'd be tough. A lockdown would mean you can't send kids to school, and a lot of parents would not be able to go to work as well. In a lockdown, do you want to restrict movement or public transport? Do you want, so that people only make necessary journeys? Only essential services would be running, like say police, fire. It's a lockdown, might be a necessary measure at some point, but I don't think at this stage yet we need it. I think if enough people adopt safe distancing and you kind of, what they call flatten the curve, a lockdown may not be necessary.
Right. Now, Minister for Home Affairs and Law K. Shanmugam said earlier in Parliament that the authorities will clamp down hard on those who do not adhere to the stay-home notices. Have a listen.
Specifically focusing on penalties for stay-at-home notice breaches. The jail term could be up to 6 months, $10,000 fine, or both. And if you're not a Singapore citizen, if you're PR, long-term visit pass holders, dependent pass holders, student pass holders, where appropriate, we will not hesitate to revoke these passes, shorten their validity, and also bar re-entry into Singapore. So the passes could be cancelled, they are short-term visitors, and you could be asked to leave Singapore immediately and barred from re-entry forever.
So, Zak, we can see that, the ministry, the government is clamping down hard on people who don't adhere to this.
That's right. Yeah.
Could you, elaborate more on that?
I think in light of the recent rise in the number of returning travelers, right, as you see lockdowns in the US and UK, a lot of Singaporean students are coming back from these places. We've seen also a sudden spike in the number of imported cases. I think, well over 100 from the UK. And I think they've all been imposed with stay-home notices. I think there are about 38,000 or so people on stay-home notices now. And the fear is that some people actually seem to have taken light of it, talk about finding ways to get around or flout your stay-home notice. And I think the government did want to send a strong signal that if you violate it, we will prosecute you and take you to task. The purpose of the stay-home notice is really to prevent you from mingling with others outside and expose them to risk of infection.
Right. Now, so there were other also issues that were being raised in Parliament earlier now, including the upcoming general election. That is the talk of the town, right?
That's right, yeah.
The general election is coming now with even stricter measures. Will the election still happen? And if so, how could it be carried out in such a situation?
Yeah. And I think Senior Minister Teo Chee Hean kind of set out the thinking behind it. It was also... well, it's not been decided, and it's hard to predict how the infection curve will spread. He made clear that I think the election has to be held by April 2021. And given that the trajectory of COVID-19 and how it'll play out globally is yet unclear, the government's thinking is that it's better to call for an election sooner rather than later. But at the same time, it's not ideal, but it's not impossible, I think, as he put it. And I think you can amend the rules and adapt guidelines. You minimize campaigning, rallies, you have temperature taking and sanitizers at polling stations and so on. So I think there are possible ways to kind of carry out voting. And it's been done in several other countries before as well.
Right. Well, that was Zakir Hussain. Thank you so much, Zakir, for coming on to the show.